Tonight, let's step back into the so-called Age of Discovery. We tend to imagine it as a grand adventure, a time of heroic explorers in gleaming ships, bringing civilization to an untouched world. But the reality was far grittier, far more desperate, and the line between explorer and pirate, between progress and plunder, was often little more than a smudge on a water-stained map. The waves that carried these men to glory were the same waves that washed away their ideals, one salty, soul-eroding crest at a time. If you enjoy these journeys into the past and appreciate a different way of looking at history, a simple click on the subscribe button helps this channel immensely. And as you settle in, think on this. What noble idea or belief have you held that was challenged by a harsh reality? Let me know in the comments below. I truly enjoy reading your thoughts. But for now, that can wait. The world outside can fade away. Find a comfortable position where your body feels supported and heavy. Let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. Take a slow, deep breath in, feeling the air fill your lungs. And as you exhale, release the day's tensions with it. With each breath, you can feel yourself sinking a little deeper into comfort, a little further from the noise of the modern world. You are becoming a quiet observer, ready for the story to unfold. Ready for the tide to carry you away. You can already taste the salt on your lips. It's the first thing you notice, and it will be the last thing you forget. It's a constant companion, a seasoning for every meal. A crust in the corner of your eyes each morning, a damp, gritty presence in the very fabric of your woolen coat. This is your world now, the endless, heaving grey, blue of the Atlantic Ocean, and the groaning, perpetually damp timbers of the privateer vessel, the Sea Dragon. You stand on the main deck, gripping the cold, slick railing to steady yourself against a swell that lifts the entire ship, holds it suspended for a heart-stopping moment, and then lets it slide down the other side of the wave with a shuddering crash. For the first week, this motion emptied your stomach and rattled your bones. Now, weeks into the voyage, it's as natural as breathing. Your legs have learned the rhythm, the constant, subtle shift of weight required to stay upright. To a land dweller, your gait would look like a drunkard's stagger, but here it is the walk of a sailor. The air itself is a shock. You might have imagined the crisp, clean scent of the open ocean. Instead, what you breathe is a thick, complex stew of smells. There's the sharp, medicinal tang of Stockholm tar, liberally smeared on every rope and plank to ward off the rot. Underlying that is the constant, musty odor of damp wood and canvas. And beneath it all is the smell of the ship's bilge. A foul, stagnant breath from the guts of the vessel, smelling of stale water, old food, and the accumulated filth of over 80 unwashed men packed into a space less than 100 feet long. Personal hygiene, you've learned, is a luxury the sea does not afford. A bucket of cold salt water, if you're brave enough to haul it up, is the best you can hope for. Your crisp linen shirt from Plymouth is long gone, replaced by a coarse, greasy garment that likely carries the scent of every man aboard. Your hands, once soft and stained only with the ordered inks of your trade, are now raw and calloused. As the ship's cartographer and navigator, you are an officer of sorts, but this is a privateer, not a grand naval vessel. There are no idle hands. You do your share of the work, hauling on lines with the common sailors, the rough hemp fibers biting into your skin until it bleeds, then heals, then toughens. The labor is relentless. From the pre-dawn chill when the boatswain's whistle shrieks the crew awake, until the last light fades from the sky, the ship demands your strength. You climb the ratlines, your stomach lurching as you look down at the waves churning far below, your fingers numb with cold as you help furl a stubborn sail in a rising gale. You learn that the romance of a ship under full sail is a beautiful painting, But the reality is a brutal, exhausting battle against the forces of nature. Your stomach growls, a hollow ache that has become familiar. You think of the warm bread and roasted meats of the taverns in Plymouth, and a wave of longing, sharp and painful, washes over you. Food here is not for pleasure. It is fuel for the unceasing work. Breakfast, if you can call it that, was hardtack, a flinty twice-baked biscuit known to sailors as ship's bread, or, more aptly, worm castles. You've learned to tap it on the table before you eat, not out of superstition, but to dislodge the weevils that burrow within it. You eat them anyway. A little extra protein, the old salts joke. This is washed down with watered-down, slightly sour beer, as the fresh water in the barrels has already begun to turn foul and slimy. Dinner will be the same, perhaps with the addition of salted pork or beef, a stringy, grey meat so saturated with brine it makes your tongue tingle and leaves you desperately thirsty. The thirst is a cruel irony, surrounded as you are by an infinite, undrinkable sea. This is the hidden cost of empire, you realize. The glorious tapestries hanging in the halls of London don't show the rot, the hunger, the back-breaking toil. They don't capture the hollow look in a young sailor's eyes as he stares at the unchanging horizon, day after day, week after week, the land of fading memory. But you push these thoughts aside. You are here for a higher purpose. From the inner pocket of your coat, you retrieve the reason for your suffering. It's a heavy piece of parchment, sealed with the Queen's own royal crest. The wax is cracked, and the edges are softened by the perpetual damp, but the words within are a fire in your belly. The Queen's commission. It grants your vessel, the Sea Dragon, and its captain, the authority to sail into Spanish-claimed waters for the purpose of discovery and reprisal. A wonderfully vague phrase. It means you are to chart the unknown coastlines of the New World for the glory of England, and in the process you are permitted, encouraged, even, to relieve any Spanish vessel you encounter of its cargo. To the Spanish you are pirates. To the Queen you are entrepreneurs, extending her reach and filling her coffers, and your own, with captured gold. You clutch the commission, the parchment, a tangible link to the world of order and ambition you left behind. This piece of paper transforms you from a mere sailor into an agent of destiny, from a potential thief into a patriot. And the man who wields this authority, the man who embodies this grand purpose, stands not 10 paces from you. Captain Gideon Blackheart Thorne. He stands on the quarterdeck, the slightly raised platform at the stern that serves as the ship's brain. He is not a large man, nor is he bedecked in the finery you might have expected from a celebrated hero whispered about at court. His coat is practical, dark wool, frayed at the cuffs and stained with salt. His boots are worn leather, scuffed and scarred from years at sea. But he possesses an aura of unshakable authority. While other men grip the rails for balance, he stands with his feet planted wide, moving with the ship as if he were a part of it, an extension of its wooden sinews. His face is a map of its own, weathered by 1,000 suns and winds. Deep lines radiate from the corners of his eyes the color of the sea just before a storm, constantly scanning. He misses nothing. The slight flutter at the edge of the mainsail that indicates a wind shift, the way a young sailor fumbles a knot, the dark smudge of a cloud on the far horizon. His voice, when he issues a command, isn't a shout. It's a sharp, clear instrument that cuts through the howl of the wind and the roar of the waves, and men jump to obey without hesitation. You've watched him for weeks, and your admiration has only deepened. This is a man who has mastered his world. In the evenings, when the work is done, and the off-duty watch gathers around the dim glow of a single lantern, he sometimes shares stories. He speaks of raiding the port of Cartagena, of outrunning a Spanish squadron in the Florida Straits, of seeing mountains so tall their peaks were hidden in the clouds. His tales are not filled with bravado, but with a calm, factual confidence that makes them all the more thrilling. He speaks of treasure not with the greedy eyes of a miser, but with the cool calculation of a strategist. The gold is not the end, he implies it is the means. It is the fuel for England's greatness, the weapon that will humble the pride of Spain. When he speaks, the crew leans in, their tired faces illuminated by the lantern light, their own hardships forgotten. He makes them believe that their suffering has meaning, that they are not just hauling ropes on a wet, miserable ship in the middle of nowhere, but are cogs in a grand machine of empire, striking a blow for their queen and their Protestant God against the Catholic might of Spain. He inspires you all. He makes you feel that this cramped, smelly ship, with its 80 souls, is the very tip of England's spear, destined for glory. You see this order, this purpose, reflected in the very life of the ship. It is a perfect microcosm of England itself, a floating island of discipline in a chaotic world. Every man has his rank and his role, a place in the great chain of being. There are the officers like you, the master, and the boatswain, who interpret the captain's will. There are the skilled tradesmen, the carpenter, whose hammers and saws are the only thing keeping the sea at bay, the cooper, who tends to the precious barrels of water and food, the surgeon, a grim man whose tools look more suited to a butcher's shop. Below them are the able seamen, the veterans who can read the weather in the clouds and tie a bowline in the dark. And at the bottom are the ship's boys, some no older than 12, who scurry about on the most thankless errands, their faces smudged with tar and their childhoods already a distant memory. The rules are absolute, the punishment swift. A man caught sleeping on watch might be flogged, his back laid bare by the cat-o' 9 tails. A thief might have his hand nailed to the mainmast as a warning to others. From your modern perspective, it's a brutal, unforgiving system. But here, you see it as necessary. On land, a weak link might mean a loss of profit. At sea, it can mean the death of everyone. This harsh discipline forges the crew into a single, efficient unit. You pull together, you eat together, you sleep crammed side by side in swaying hammocks in the dark, stuffy space below deck. A strange and powerful brotherhood is forged in these shared hardships, a loyalty to the ship and to the captain that transcends all else. You believe you are exporting this superior English order to the wild, untamed corners of the globe. Slowly, you turn your gaze back to the west, to the endless horizon where the sun is beginning its descent, painting the undersides of the clouds in hues of orange and violet. The shores of home are a ghost now, a memory that grows fainter with each passing day. You remember the last sight of England, the white cliffs receding into a grey, morning mist, feeling not a pang of sadness, but a surge of exhilaration. You were finally free of the predictable, charted coasts of Europe. You reach into another pocket, and your fingers find the tools of your trade. Not the rough hemp of the sailor, but the smooth, cool brass of your astrolabe and the polished wood of your cross, staff, your true purpose. You are not just a sailor, you are a scientist, an artist. Your calling is to give form to the formless, to translate the terrifying, beautiful emptiness of the sea and the mysterious shapes of new lands into the clean, precise language of the map. In your mind's eye, you see the blank parchments waiting for you in your small cabin, a space you share with the ship's master. You can almost feel the satisfying scratch of the quill as you draw the first tentative line of a coastline no Englishman has ever seen. You will mark the hidden coves, the treacherous reefs, the safe anchorages. You will name the capes and bays, immortalizing your patrons, your captain, your queen. Your work will guide future ships, expanding the reach of your nation, bringing the light of civilization into the heart of the unknown. Your maps will be your legacy. They will be displayed at court, studied by the Royal Society. You will bring honor to your family name. These are the dreams that fill your mind as the last sliver of sun dips below the horizon, and the world is plunged into the profound, star-dusted darkness of the open ocean. The wind grows colder, whipping the spray into your face, but you barely feel it. You are warmed by the fire of your own idealism, your unshakable faith in the rightness of your cause. You are a young man from Plymouth, serving a legendary captain on a voyage of discovery for his queen. The world is a blank page, and you are holding the quill. You are filled not with fear, but with a pure, thrilling sense of a grand and noble destiny about to unfold. You have no idea that the same lines you draw to claim the world for others will be the very lines that cause you to lose yourself. The memory of England's shores has become a phantom, a ghost of green hills dissolving into the persistent, formidable blue of the Atlantic. The patriotic fire that burned so brightly in your chest as you clutched the Queen's commission now feels like a distant warmth, a comforting but fading ember against the raw, damp chill of the open ocean. Weeks have bled into one another, each dawn and dusk a near-perfect copy of the last, marked only by the subtle shift of the constellations you so diligently chart. Your dreams of mapping new worlds and earning glory for the crown remain, but they are now seasoned with the taste of salt spray and the hard, unyielding reality of life at sea. The grand, ordered purpose of the Sea Dragon has settled into a grinding, daily routine, a floating microcosm of labor and waiting, suspended between the world you left behind and the one you have yet to find. Captain Thorne, once a figure of pure, uncomplicated heroism in your eyes, still commands with undeniable confidence. But you have begun to notice the deep, set lines of impatience forming around his eyes. The endless expanse of water, it seems, tests even the resolve of legends. Life has compressed itself into the creaking, groaning confines of this ship, a world just over 100 feet long. Your day begins not with the sun, but with the changing of the watch and the coarse shouting of the boatswain. You drag yourself from your hammock, a simple canvas sling that sways in time with the ocean's deep breathing. And the first thing that hits you is the air. You had imagined the sea air would be clean, a brisk, purifying tonic. The reality is something else entirely. It's a thick, layered tapestry of smells, the mildew clinging to the perpetually damp oak timbers, the cloying sweetness of rot from the bilge deep below, the eye, watering ammonia from the livestock pens, and the undeniable, close, packed scent of 60 unwashed men. There is no escape from it. It clings to your wool doublet, seeps into your bedding, and flavors every breath you take. Your duties as navigator begin at once. On the quarterdeck, you brace yourself against the gentle, relentless roll of the vessel. Your tools feel like extensions of your own hands now. The heavy brass astrolabe, the smooth, worn wood of the cross staff. You raise it to the horizon, squinting against the glare of the morning sun on the water, trying to hold the sun's arc steady as the deck shifts beneath your feet. This is a physical act, an exercise in balance and patience that your training in the quiet halls of Plymouth never prepared you for. Every measurement is a battle against the motion of the sea. Every calculation a small victory against the vast indifference of the ocean. You make your marks on a slate, your fingers smudged with chalk, before painstakingly transferring them to the precious vellum chart below deck. The line of your progress seems to crawl across the empty space, a tiny, presumptuous scratch on an immense and unknown canvas. You realize, with a sinking feeling, that for all your science and all your faith, you are profoundly lost, guided only by pinpricks of light in the sky and the magnetic pull of a needle in a box. Your stomach growls, a reminder that it is time for breakfast. This is a ritual of endurance, not pleasure. You join the men, taking your share of the ship's biscuit, or as the sailors call it, hardtack. You might have imagined it as a simple, rustic cracker. The truth is that it's a slab of flour, water, and salt, baked 4 times over until it is as hard as a slab of wood. You have to smash it with the hilt of your knife or soak it in your grog, a watered down sour rum, to make it remotely chewable. As you bite down, you feel the familiar, sickening crunch of weevils. The tiny black insects are an unavoidable part of the diet, a source of grim humor among the crew who call them extra protein. You wash it down with water from the casks, but even that is not fresh. After weeks at sea, it carries the woody, stale taste of its container, and you know that in another month, it will be slimy with green algae. You look at the sailors around you, their faces weathered, their hands calloused and scarred, and you see how they accept this without complaint. This is the price of crossing the ocean. This is the fuel for empire. The days settle into a rhythm dictated by the winds and the watches. The ship is a living creature, and you learn its language. The constant groaning of its timbers as they flex under the strain of the waves. The sharp snap of the canvas as the wind shifts. The rhythmic slosh of the bilge water far below. These sounds become the backdrop to your existence. There is no silence here ever. Even in the dead of night, the ship whispers and moans around you. The monotony is the true enemy. It grinds down a man's spirit more than any storm. You see it in the way the men stare blankly at the horizon, in the rising frequency of petty squabbles over a game of cards, in the desperate, almost manic energy they pour into singing sea shanties during the dog watch. They, like you, are hungry for something to happen. Anything to break the endless, hypnotic cycle of blue water and white sail. And then, one blistering hot afternoon, it does. The cry comes from the crow's nest, a piercing shriek that slices through the mundane drone of the ship. Sail ho! The words act like a bolt of lightning. The listless lethargy that had gripped the crew vanishes in an instant. Men drop what they're doing, scrambling for position, their faces alive with a predator's excitement. Captain Thorne is already on the quarterdeck, a spyglass pressed to his eye, his stance radiating a vibrant, lethal energy you haven't seen since you left port. He barks a command, his voice cutting cleanly through the sudden clamor. A Spaniard, by her colors! A fat merchantman riding low in the water! A roar goes up from the crew. This is what they have been waiting for. Not land, not glory, but gold. The sea dragon comes alive. It's a transformation from a lumbering beast of burden into a coiled serpent. The ship's master screams orders, and men swarm up the rigging with a terrifying agility, unfurling the topsails to catch every breath of wind. The decks, which seconds before were cluttered with coils of rope and lounging sailors, are being systematically cleared for action. Boys scurry across the planks, scattering sand. You watch them, confused for a moment, before an older sailor grins at you, his teeth stained brown. So you don't slip when it gets wet, Master Map Maker, he says, with a grim wink that makes your stomach clench. Wet with what? The answer is obvious and unsettling. The chase is on. The Spanish ship is clumsy, built for cargo, not for speed. The Sea Dragon, a privateer frigate, is a creature of the hunt. You feel the ship surge forward, the deck tilting at a sharper angle as it bites into the waves. The thrill of it is undeniable, a potent, intoxicating rush that pushes aside your apprehension. This is the grand adventure you signed up for. Thorne is a master at this, watching the wind, calling for infinitesimal adjustments to the sails, coaxing every ounce of speed from his vessel. You stand near him, clutching the rail, feeling the sea spray on your face. your heart hammering in time with the waves striking the hull. As you draw closer, the gun crews go to work. It's a brutal, mechanical dance. The 10-pounder cannons are run out, their black snouts poking menacingly from the gun ports. You watch the men work in teams, their movements practiced and efficient. They swab the barrels to extinguish any lingering embers, load the cartridge of black powder, and then ram home the heavy iron ball. It's a dangerous, exhausting process. A single stray spark could turn the gun deck into an inferno. The air grows thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder and the tense sweat of anticipation. Thorne gives the order. Fire as they bear! The world dissolves into sound and fury. The first cannon goes off with a concussive blast that feels less like a sound and more like a physical blow to your entire body. The deck jumps beneath your feet, and a thick cloud of sulphurous white smoke momentarily blinds you. Another cannon fires, then another, a rolling thunder that deafens you. You see the cannonballs skip across the water, impossibly fast, before one smashes into the hull of the Spanish ship. You don't just see it, you hear it. A sickening, percussive crunch of splintering wood. A shower of white splinters, larger than a man, erupts from the point of impact. You learn another hard lesson of naval combat. It's not the cannonball that is most likely to kill you, but the thousands of wooden daggers your own ship turns into when struck. The Spanish return fire, but their aim is panicked and wild. One shot screams overhead, a terrifying whistle that makes you flinch instinctively. Another slams into the water beside you, sending up a colossal plume of white water that soaks the deck. But Thorne has outmaneuvered them. He brings the Sea Dragon across the Spaniard's stern, a position from which you can rake their decks with cannon fire while they can't bring their own guns to bear. It is a merciless, tactical execution. The cannons roar again and again, tearing apart the enemy's rigging, shredding their sails, and turning their deck into a charnel house. Then comes the call for boarding. The ships grind together with a hellish screech of wood on wood. Grappling hooks are thrown, binding the two vessels into a single, violent entity. With a guttural roar, the men of the Sea Dragon surge over the rails, a wave of steel and fury. They are armed with cutlasses, axes, and short-barreled pistols. You stay on the quarterdeck with Thorne, an unwilling witness to the intimate butchery below. It is not a duel of flashing swords like in the stories. It is a chaotic, clumsy, brutal scrum. Men slip on the blood-sanded decks, hacking and stabbing in a desperate frenzy. The air is filled with the sharp crack of pistols, the clang of steel, and the agonized screams of the wounded and dying. It is swift, personal, and utterly horrific. In what feels like only a few minutes, it is over. The Spanish flag is torn down, and the remaining crew throws down their weapons, their faces a mask of terror and defeat. The intoxicating thrill you felt during the chase has curdled into a cold sickness in the pit of your stomach. The deck of the Spanish galleon is slick with blood. The groans of the wounded from both sides provide a ghastly soundtrack to the victory. And then you see the side of Captain Thorne that you had only glimpsed before. He steps aboard the captured vessel, not as a conquering hero, but as an auditor taking stock. He surveys the scene with an unreadable expression, his eyes cold and calculating. He finds the Spanish captain, a man pale with fear but trying to maintain some shred of dignity. There is no talk of honorable surrender or the articles of war. Thorne's voice is low and devoid of emotion. Your lives, he states, pointing to the terrified Spanish crew, in exchange for the location of your strongbox, and any other valuables you have failed to declare. It's not a negotiation. It is a transaction. You watch, horrified and fascinated, as the Spanish captain, his life and the lives of his men balanced on a knife's edge, quickly agrees. Thorne's men ransacked the ship with a practiced efficiency, hauling up chests of silver coins, bolts of fine silk, and barrels of expensive wine. Thorne oversees it all, his eyes gleaming with a hard, metallic light. It is the gleam of pure avarice. In that moment, your image of him as a noble servant of the Queen shatters. He is a predator, and this is his kill. The Queen's commission, you realize with a jolt, is not a sacred charge to him. It is a license to get rich. Later, you are sent with a small party to conduct a final search of the captured ship's hold before you set it alight. The air below deck is hot and stifling, thick with the smell of exotic cargo, cinnamon, cloves, and tobacco. By the flickering light of a lantern, you move between crates and barrels. And that is where you find him. He is chained to a bulkhead in the darkest corner of the hold, almost invisible in the gloom. He is not Spanish. His skin is the color of rich earth, his black hair long and straight. He wears only a simple loincloth, and his body is lean and corded with muscle. He is an indigenous man, a native of this new world you have come to chart. He does not cower or plead. He simply sits there amidst the filth, his back straight, and watches you with eyes that are dark, deep, and impossibly ancient. There is no fear in them. There is no hatred. There is only a profound, silent, and unnerving stillness. It's a gaze that seems to peel back your fine uniform, your naval training, and your patriotic ideals, and see the confused, young man beneath. You learn from one of the Spanish survivors that he was captured from another ship, a prize to be sold in Cadiz. To them, he was just another piece of cargo, less valuable than the spices but more valuable than the livestock. Your men unchain him and lead him onto the deck of the Sea Dragon. He does not resist. He moves with a quiet grace that seems utterly out of place amidst the boisterous, triumphant crew. You give him a name you heard the Spaniards use, Kyle. As the sun begins to set, casting long, bloody shadows across the water, the final task is completed. The Spanish galleon, stripped of its wealth, is set ablaze. You stand at the rail of the Sea Dragon and watch it burn. Flames lick up the mast, consuming the tattered sails, turning the proud ship into a funeral pyre on the darkening sea. The crew is celebrating, passing around looted bottles of wine, their voices loud and boisterous. They are counting their shares of the prize money, their faces flush with victory and greed. But you feel no joy. Your gaze drifts from the burning ship to the chests of silver stacked on your own deck, and then to the silent figure of Kyle, who sits apart from the crew, watching the horizon in the opposite direction, toward the unknown west. You were filled with dreams of honor when this voyage began, a belief in the clean, noble purpose of expanding your nation's glory. But the reality is so much messier. It is the stench of gunpowder, the slick feel of a blood-soaked deck, the cold transaction for men's lives, and the silent, judging eyes of a captive. A seed of unease, deep and unsettling, has taken root in your soul. You are beginning to understand that the charts you came here to draw will never capture the true, brutal landscape of this venture. The last few weeks have left a stain on your soul, a greasy film of unease that the clean salt spray of the sea can no longer wash away. The brutal, efficient victory over the Spanish merchantman lingers, not as a memory of glory, but as a series of disturbing snapshots. You see the splintered wood of the enemy rail, smell the acrid gunpowder and the metallic tang of blood, and you hear the pleas of the defeated men. But most of all, you see Captain Thorne's eyes. The warm, inspiring light of the hero of Plymouth has been replaced by the hard, calculating glint of a predator weighing its spoil. That coldness has settled deep in your bones, a premonition of a coming winter even here in the sweltering heat of the tropics. And then there is Kyle, the silent man taken from the Spanish hold. His presence is a quiet accusation, a constant reminder that this grand endeavor of queen and country is built upon a foundation of violence you are only just beginning to comprehend. The unease has followed you from the open deck into the captain's cabin, where a new, more dangerous fever has taken hold, one that begins not with a mosquito's bite, but with the crinkle of a captured map. You stand beside Captain Thorne, the gentle rock of the anchored sea dragon, a familiar comfort in a world rapidly tilting off its axis. But the familiar order of the ship ends at the cabin door. Inside, a feverish energy crackles in the air, thick and humid. The scent is no longer of tarred rope and sea salt, but of stale sweat, spilled wine, and a desperate, burning ambition. Before you, spread across the great oak table where you have so often plotted meticulous, star-guided courses, lies a collection of stolen Spanish charts. They are nothing like your own precise work. Your maps are instruments of science, ruled with lines of longitude and latitude, elegant and certain. These are things of myth. The coastlines are crudely drawn, the interiors filled with fantastical beasts and warnings written in a flowery, panicked script. And there, at the heart of the largest chart, is a symbol drawn in faded gold ink, a sunburst city nestled between two rivers that do not exist on any reputable chart. El Dorado, the gilded king. Thorne's finger, stained with ink and grime, stabs at the symbol. Here, he hisses, his voice a dry rasp. The Spaniards were closer than they knew. They wrote of it as a legend to appease their king, but their navigator's log, it tells another story. He shoves a leather, bound book towards you. The pages are warped with sea damp, the Spanish script a frantic scrawl. You can barely make it out, but you see the words repeated over and over: oro, 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 gold. Forget the treasure galleons, Thorne declares, his eyes wide and unnervingly bright. They are minnows. This is the Leviathan. For a moment, you are swept up in it. The dream of it. A city of gold. A prize that would make England the envy of the world, and every man aboard a king in his own right. But your training, your rational mind, screams in protest. You see the gaps in the logic, the reliance on hearsay, the wild extrapolations based on a dying sailor's fever dream. This isn't navigation, it's madness. You try to voice this, to speak of currents and seasons, of the logistical nightmare of taking a crew inland. He silences you with a look, a flash of that same cold fire you saw on the deck of the Spanish prize. You are the finest navigator I know, he says, his voice dangerously soft. You will get us there. The Queen's commission is one of discovery, is it not? We shall discover something that will make her crown so heavy she can barely lift her head. The order is given. The sea dragon is to be hidden, and a party is to be prepared. The crew receives the news with a mixture of raw, gold, crazed excitement, and a deep, primal fear. You see it in their eyes as they sharpen machetes and pack rations. The gamblers thrill warring with the animal's instinct to flee. You are to lead the vanguard, your compass and your intellect tasked with turning a madman's fantasy into a tangible destination. Your heart sinks. Your job is to chart the known and the unknown, but you have just been ordered to chart the impossible. The transition from the world of the sea to the world of the jungle is not gradual. It is a violent, physical shock. One moment you are in a longboat, riding the gentle swell of a hidden, turquoise cove, the sea breeze a cool blessing on your skin. The next, you step ashore and pass through the screen of palms and vines, and the world slams shut behind you. It is like walking into a steam-filled room. The air stops moving. The humidity is a physical weight, a wet, woolen blanket that smothers you instantly. You feel sweat prickle your skin, but it provides no relief. Because in this oppressively humid environment, close to 100% saturation, your sweat cannot evaporate. It cannot cool you. It simply clings, soaking your linen shirt and woolen breeches, turning your clothes into a sodden, chafing prison. The very act of breathing feels different. You are not inhaling air so much as drinking it, a thick, vegetative broth, and the smell, you thought you knew unpleasant smells. The bilge of a ship, the press of unwashed bodies in a Plymouth tavern. This is something else entirely. It is the smell of life and death locked in a constant, furious embrace. The sweet, cloying perfume of 1,000 unknown blossoms is a top note, but beneath it is the deep, pervasive odor of decay. Rotting leaves, damp earth, the pungent funk of mold and fungus. It is the smell of a world that is constantly being born and constantly dying all at once. Your modern sensibilities, were you to have them, would scream for hand sanitizer, for a hot shower, for anything sterile and clean. Here, there is no such thing as clean. There is only the fecund, overwhelming vitality of the Green Maw. You take your first steps, and the soundscape changes as abruptly as the air. The rhythmic wash of the waves is gone, replaced by a cacophony that is at once deafening and unnerving. It is not one sound, but a million, layered into a disorienting wall of noise. The high-pitched, incessant whine of insects is a constant pressure against your eardrums. The shrieks and calls of exotic birds you cannot see echo from the canopy high above. You hear the rustle of unseen things in the undergrowth, the drip of water from broad leaves, the creak of ancient trees. You are a navigator, a man who finds his way by clear, celestial signs and the predictable logic of wind and current. Here, your skills feel laughably inadequate. You pull out your compass, the brass cool against your sweaty palm. The needle trembles and points north, a single point of certainty in a world of chaos. It is your only anchor. Lifting your machete, you take the first swing at the wall of green, and the expedition begins. The days that follow blur into a single, unending struggle against the wilderness. Your romantic notions of exploration, of striding boldly into a new world, evaporate within the first mile. This is not walking. This is a battle for every single foot of ground. The jungle does not yield. You must hack it, tear it, and force your way through it. Your hands, accustomed to the delicate work of quill and parchment, are soon raw with blisters from the rough handle of the machete. Then the blisters break, and the raw skin becomes an open invitation to infection in this sweltering, microbe-rich air. Your morning begins before the sun has a chance to penetrate the dense canopy. You wake up not to a gentle dawn, but to a grey, dim twilight, your body stiff and aching in your damp hammock. You feel a profound, soul-deep exhaustion, because every muscle in your body has been engaged in a constant, low-grade struggle for 12 hours a day. Not the focused work of hoisting a sail or turning a capstan, but the awkward, twisting labor of hacking at vines, stumbling over roots, and pulling your mud-caked boots from the sucking earth. This isn't exercise, it is a slow, grinding depletion of your physical self. Breakfast is a miserable affair. Salt pork and hardtack, the same food that sustained you perfectly well at sea, is almost impossible to stomach here. The salt pork is greasy and far too heavy in the heat, and the hardtack, a biscuit baked to the consistency of wood, requires a heroic effort to chew. You gnaw on it, your jaw aching, and all you can think about is a piece of fresh fruit, a cool drink of water. But even the water is a source of anxiety. It is plentiful, but you know it teems with invisible dangers. The vapus and miasmas. Your ship's surgeon warned of that bring fever and dysentery. You try to boil it when you can, but often you must drink it straight from a stream. A desperate gamble against thirst. Then the march begins. You take your place at the front, compass in hand. The heat builds relentlessly. Sweat pours down your face, stinging your eyes, dripping from the end of your nose. Your woolen breeches, practical and durable in the cool climes of England, are an instrument of torture here. They are heavy, They chafe your skin raw, and they never, ever dry. You look at the other men, their faces flushed, their movements becoming sluggish and clumsy. You see the first signs of what is to come. A man stumbles, his face pale. Another retches into the bushes, his body rebelling against the food and the exertion. And all the while, the insects are a relentless plague. Mosquitoes, black flies, biting ants. They are in your hair, in your ears, crawling down your collar. You slap at them, curse them, but it is useless. They are a part of this world. You are the intruder. Their bites leave angry. Itching welts that you scratch in your sleep, opening more avenues for infection. You realize that the grand struggle of empire, building isn't fought with cannons and swords alone. It is also fought against the infinitely small, against the mosquito, the microbe, the festering sore. As the first week bleeds into the second, and the second into a month, the jungle's assault becomes more insidious. It is no longer just a physical hardship, it is a psychological war. The eternal, dim green light beneath the canopy begins to mess with your sense of time. The constant, oppressive noise grinds down your nerves. The claustrophobia is immense. You can never see more than 20 feet in any direction. There is no horizon, no open space, no sense of progress. For all you know, you could be marching in circles. The men's morale begins to rot faster than the leaf litter on the forest floor. The boisterous shanties and grand talk of gold have been replaced by sullen silence, broken only by hacking coughs and muttered curses. Fights break out over trivial things, a stolen swig of water, a perceived slight. Paranoia festers in the gloom. Captain Thorne seems immune to it all, or rather, he is consumed by a fever far more potent than any the jungle can conjure. His obsession with El Dorado has burned away the man you once admired. He is gaunt, his skin pulled tight over his cheekbones, but his eyes burn with a terrifying intensity. He pushes the expedition forward with a relentless, brutal cruelty. When a young sailor named Thomas collapses, his body racked with a violent fever, Thorne barely pauses. "Leave him," he commands, his voice flat. "He is slowing us down. The city is close. I can feel it. You are appalled." This goes against every code of the sea, every tenet of loyalty and brotherhood. You protest, arguing that you cannot simply abandon a man. Thorne turns on you, his face a mask of rage. "Every day we delay is a day the Spaniards could find it before us. Do you want that on your conscience? His sacrifice will be remembered when we are piling gold bricks on the docks in London." You look at poor Thomas, shivering on the damp ground, and you realize Thorne is no longer seeing his crew as men. He sees them as fuel. Something to be burned to get him to his destination. Rations are cut. The pace is quickened. The weak are left to the mercy of the jungle. The Sea Dragon and the Queen's Commission feel like they belong to another lifetime. You are no longer on a voyage of discovery. You are in a death march led by a madman. In the midst of this waking nightmare, you find an unexpected island of sanity. It is in the quiet presence of Kyle. At first, you paid him little mind, another piece of cargo won in battle. He is Thorne's prisoner, his guide, led by a rope tied loosely about his wrists. But here, in the jungle, your roles begin to feel inverted. He is the one who is at home, and you are the one who is truly captive, a prisoner of your own ignorance. You begin to watch him, while your men crash clumsily through the undergrowth, startling wildlife and wasting enormous energy. Cal moves with a silent, fluid grace. He doesn't fight the jungle, he flows with it. He steps over roots you would have tripped on. He ducks under branches you would have blundered into. He seems to see a path where you only see an impenetrable wall. One sweltering afternoon, your water skin nearly empty and your tongue thick in your mouth, you see him stop. He kneels, touches a specific type of broad, leafed vine, and with a small, sharp stone, he makes a neat cut. Clear, cool water begins to drip out, and he gestures for you to drink. The water is the purest, most refreshing thing you have ever tasted. You look at him, a question in your eyes. He simply points to the vine, then to his mouth, then smiles a small, fleeting smile. That is the beginning. You start to spend more time near him on the march, your professional curiosity as a cartographer overriding the ingrained prejudice of your station. You learn through gestures, through the handful of Spanish words he knows, and the few you can remember. He teaches you a new kind of map, not one of ink and paper, but one written in the language of the forest itself. He shows you which berries are safe to eat, and which will send you to a convulsive death. He points out the track of a wild pig, the nest of a dangerous hornet. He teaches you to listen, to distinguish the warning call of a monkey from its normal chatter, to recognize the sound of a venomous snake slithering through the leaves. One evening, you are struggling with your compass in the deepening twilight, trying to get a bearing. The magnetic north feels arbitrary, useless in this vertical, tangled world. Kyle comes to stand beside you. He ignores the compass. Instead, he points up to a sliver of sky visible through the canopy. He points to a specific star you don't recognize. Then he points to a type of silver-barked tree, and then makes a sweeping gesture in the direction you are to travel in the morning. He is navigating by a system older and more attuned to this land than any European science. You realize, with a humbling shock, that your precious maps and instruments are an arrogant imposition on this world. They are an attempt to cage it, to reduce it to lines and numbers. Kyle doesn't seek to conquer the world. He seeks to understand his place within it. His wealth is not gold, but knowledge. His power is not in command, but in resilience. The contrast between him and Thorne becomes a chasm in your mind. Thorne, with all his authority, his weapons, and his burning ambition, is a weak and flailing thing in this environment, utterly dependent on the tools he brought with him. He is destroying his men and himself in pursuit of a glittering phantom. Kale, with nothing but his knowledge and his connection to the land, is truly powerful. He is a survivor. A quiet respect for the indigenous man grows within you, unsettling the very foundations of your worldview. You came here believing you were bringing enlightenment to a savage world. You now understand that you are the savage, blind and deaf to the intricate, sacred order of the land you seek only to plunder. As you lie in your hammock, listening to the alien symphony of the jungle night and the feverish muttering of Captain Thorne poring over his mad charts by firelight, a cold certainty settles in your heart. This expedition is not just doomed. It is a blasphemy, and you are a part of it. The oppressive weight of the jungle has become your entire world. It has been over a month since you left the clean, salt, scarred decks of the Sea Dragon. A month since you traded the reliable guidance of the stars for this disorienting, living labyrinth. The Green Maw, as the sailors have come to call it, has chewed on you all, spitting out thinner, wilder-eyed versions of the proud Englishmen who first set foot on this shore. The humidity clings to you like a second skin, breeding rot in your clothes and despair in your heart. Captain Thorne's obsession, once a source of inspiration, has curdled into a fever that burns hotter each day, and the crew's morale has frayed into a thing of whispered complaints and sullen silences. In this suffocating world, you have found a strange, silent companionship with Kyle, the indigenous captive. While Thorne sees only a savage, an obstacle, you have begun to see a man who understands this world you are all drowning in. His quiet competence stands in stark, damning contrast to your captain's destructive ambition. And now, after weeks of hacking your way through this endless green hell, you have stumbled upon something new. A clearing. A slow, muddy river bend, and in it a small, overgrown outpost that sends a fresh, dangerous spark of madness into Captain Thorne's eyes. Your first impression of the place is one of profound disappointment, a feeling you quickly hide. You, who have dreamed of charting grand coastlines and discovering magnificent cities, now stand at the edge of a miserable collection of huts. The reality of exploration, you are learning, is often a muddy, pathetic affair. The air, usually thick with the smells of damp earth and decay, is layered here with the unfamiliar aroma of wood smoke, roasted maize, and something vaguely spicy that you can't place. It's a human smell, a smell of life, yet the settlement itself looks half swallowed by the relentless jungle. Perhaps a dozen structures, fashioned from mud, woven branches, and thatched roofs of palm fronds, sag in the oppressive heat. Chickens scratch in the dirt, and a few thin, dark-eyed dogs watch your party's approach with a silent, unnerving stillness. This isn't a Spanish stronghold or a hidden bastion of a lost empire. It's a village, a remote trading stop at best, and the thought that Thorne believes this meager place holds the key to a city of gold feels less like ambition and more like pure delusion. Speaking of your party, you can only imagine what you look like to the villagers who are now emerging from their homes. Their faces a mixture of fear and wary curiosity. You are no longer the Queen's proud privateers. You are gaunt spectres haunted by hunger and fever. Your fine English wool and linen have been reduced to rotting, sweat-stained rags. Your boots, once polished and sturdy, are cracked and perpetually coated in a layer of mud, the leather softened to the consistency of wet parchment. The men's faces are hidden behind matted beards, their skin covered in a constellation of insect bites, angry red welts that you all scratch at in your sleep. You move with a grim, exhausted economy of motion, the swagger of the English sailor long since baked and sweated out of you. You are a plague upon this land, and you can see that knowledge reflected in the eyes of the people watching you. Your stomach clenches with a familiar gnawing ache. Hunger has been your constant companion for weeks. You might think of hunger in your modern life as a missed meal, an inconvenience solved by a quick trip to the kitchen. But this is a deeper, more cellular starvation. Because your naval rations were not meant for a long overland expedition. The hardtack, the sailor's bread, is now riddled with weevils and a bitter green mold that you scrape off before choking down the dusty remains. The salted pork has long since turned rancid in the heat. Your survival depends entirely on what you can hunt, and the jungle, for all its teeming life, does not give up its secrets easily. The men are not skilled woodsmen, and for every scrawny monkey or bright feathered bird they manage to bring down, there are days of nothing but palm hearts and a handful of unfamiliar, mealy roots that Kale points out. You feel a constant, draining lethargy, a physical weakness that makes lifting your musket feel like raising a church bell. This is the reality of the grand quest for glorious slow, attritional defeat at the hands of biology itself. Thorne, however, seems fueled by his own internal fire. He strides into the center of the village, his eyes sweeping over everything, dismissing the poverty, the humility of the place. He sees only secrets. He bellows in the crude Spanish he picked up in his years of raiding, a language of commands and threats. Oro! Dilud este el oro.
Lost you, Dad!
Gold. Where is the gold? The city. An old man, his face a beautiful, intricate map of wrinkles, steps forward. He is clearly the village elder. He holds his hands out, palms open, a universal gesture of peace. He speaks in a soft, musical tongue you do not understand, shaking his head slowly. He then switches to a few words of heavily accented Spanish, the lingua franca of trade and invasion along these coasts. No oro, no ciudad. Acaso solo vivimos? No gold, no city. Here, we only live. This simple, honest answer is not what Thorne wants to hear. You see something snap behind his eyes. The last thread of the celebrated, charming Captain Thorne you knew from Plymouth finally breaks. He turns to two of his most hardened men, sailors named Griggs and Carver, whose cruelty has become more pronounced as their desperation has grown. He's lying. Thorne snarls, his voice low and ragged. These people trade with the inland tribes. They know. Make him talk. You feel a cold spike of dread in your gut. This is not a naval engagement with rules of conflict. This is not the sanctioned reprisal against a Spanish enemy. This is something else entirely, something dark and lawless. Griggs grins, a terrifying sight in his tangled beard, and steps forward. What follows shatters you. The elder stands his ground with a quiet dignity, repeating his denial. Griggs backhands him across the face. The sickening crack of the blow echoes in the humid air. The old man stumbles but does not fall. He looks at Thorne, not with fear, but with a profound, sorrowful contempt. That look of contempt is the final catalyst. Thorne gives a curt nod, and the interrogation begins in earnest. You watch in a state of horrified paralysis as they drag the old man to the central post of a half-built hut. The screams of the women and the panicked cries of the children are a sound you know will be etched into your memory for the rest of your days. You want to look away, to protest, to invoke the Queen's name, and the gentlemanly code you foolishly believed governed your actions. But you are frozen. Your feet feel as though they have taken root in the mud. You are a cartographer, a man of science and observation, and you are observing the absolute dissolution of your world. You are not watching a battle. There is no honor here. You are watching sheer, brutal torture. You see an act of such calculated, senseless violence that the very ideals you hold dear, honor, duty, the civilizing mission of empire, turn to ash in your mouth. You see Thorne watching, his arms crossed, his face a stony mask of impatience, as if the old man's suffering is merely an annoying delay in his schedule. The royal commission you clutched with such pride on the deck of the Sea Dragon now seems like a profane joke, a license for barbarism. In that moment, your loyalty does not just waver, it shatters into 1,000 pieces. The man you admired, the hero of England, is a monster. And you, by your presence, by your silence, are complicit. The physical sickness that rises in your throat is the taste of self-loathing. You finally turn away, stumbling toward the edge of the clearing, the old man's strangled cries following you. That night, the camp is a place of profound moral sickness. The men who participated in the violence are sullen and quiet, while the others, like you, just try to make themselves small, to disappear. The outpost yielded nothing. No secret maps, no whispered directions, no gold. Just a broken old man and a village paralyzed by terror. The air, which earlier smelled of life, now smells of fear and spilled blood. You cannot bring yourself to eat the food Thorne's men requisitioned from the village stores. You sit apart, the gibbous moon casting long, distorted shadows through the canopy. The normal chorus of the jungle, the chirping of insects, the croaking of frogs, the distant hoot of an owl, feels different tonight. It no longer sounds like a neutral wilderness. It sounds like a jury, its countless voices whispering a verdict of guilty. You feel the cold night air seep into your thin shirt. In England, a chill like this would be a minor inconvenience. Here it feels different, because your body, already weakened by malnutrition and ravaged by the day's constant energy, sapping heat, has no reserves left. The slightest drop in temperature feels like a plunge into icy water. Your body fat is gone, your muscles are wasted. You are living on the knife's edge of survival, and the psychological shock of the day's events has pushed you even closer to the abyss. You wrap your arms around yourself, not just for warmth, but as if to hold the remaining fragments of your identity together. Your gaze drifts to Kyle. He is tied to a tree, as he is every night, but the bonds are loose, almost an afterthought. He sits with a stillness that is both unnerving and deeply admirable. He watched the day's horror with an unreadable expression, his dark eyes missing nothing. He is a captive, yet he seems freer than you are. He is bound by ropes, you are bound by a loyalty you no longer feel to a cause you no longer believe in. A thought, once treasonous and unthinkable, now takes root in your mind, growing with an unstoppable, desperate force you must leave. The inner conflict is agonizing. To desert is to betray your country, your queen, your commission. It is to become a man without a nation, a traitor. If caught, you would be hanged from the yardarm of the first English ship you encountered. You would bring shame upon your family name. Every fiber of your upbringing screams against it. But what is the alternative? To stay and watch Thorne descend further into madness. To participate, even through silence, in more atrocities like the one you witnessed today. To let this quest for a mythical city annihilate not just your body, but your soul. The fear of what you will become if you stay is, for the first time, greater than the fear of being branded a traitor. You look at your hands, the hands of a mapmaker, hands meant to create order and understanding. You cannot let them be stained, even by complicity, with the kind of bloody work Thorne now demands. Your decision solidifies. It feels less like a choice and more like a simple recognition of fact. You are on the wrong path. The life you knew has ended. You clutch the small, heavy brass compass in your pocket. It was your key to charting the world for the crown. Now, it will be your key to escaping it. You will not die in the service of this madman's greed. You will take your chances with the jungle. The deepest point of the night arrives, a time when the moon is low and the sleep of exhausted men is at its heaviest. The fire has burned down to a pile of glowing orange embers, casting a faint, pulsing light on the sleeping forms scattered around the camp. This is your moment. You move with a slowness that is excruciating, every tiny sound amplified in the silence. The rustle of your ragged shirt sounds like a storm at sea. The soft scuff of your boot on the dirt sounds like a cannon shot. You hold your breath, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. You gather your few precious possessions. Your satchel which contains your rolled-up charts, useless now for conquest, but perhaps vital for survival. Your whetstone, your flint and steel, the small, sharp knife from your belt, and of course, your compass. You are not taking treasure. You are taking tools. You are shedding your identity as a privateer and taking up the far more honest role of a survivor. Your final act is the most dangerous. You creep toward Kyle. He is awake. His eyes are open and fixed on you in the gloom, but he makes no sound. There is no surprise in his expression, only a calm, patient waiting. You knew he would be awake. He sleeps in a way you and the other Englishmen cannot comprehend. A light, aware state, always listening to the pulse of the world around him. You kneel and saw at the rough ropes binding his wrists. The fiber parts with a soft, tearing sound. He rubs his wrists for a moment, and then you both rise. No words are exchanged. None are needed. A profound understanding passes between you in that silent moment. You are not his savior. You are merely two men choosing freedom on the same night. He gives you a single, sharp nod, a gesture that says, "Follow your own path, and be silent." He melts into the shadows in one direction, a ghost disappearing back into his own world. You turn and slip into the jungle in another. The transition from the relative openness of the camp to the utter blackness under the canopy is instantaneous and shocking. Cool, damp leaves brush against your face. The thick, tangled undergrowth grabs at your clothes. You are no longer on a charted course. You have stepped off the map. The fear is immense, a living thing that claws at your throat. Every shadow is a jaguar. Every snapping twig is one of Thorne's men come to drag you back. But beneath the fear is something else. Something you haven't felt in a month, a sliver of clean. Cold hope. You have committed treason. You have abandoned your post, your captain, and your queen. You are a fugitive, an outlaw in a world you do not understand. But you are free of Captain Gideon Thorne. You have reached a fork in the river of your life, and you have deliberately, irrevocably, chosen the uncharted tributary. You press on into the darkness, your compass in your hand, a traitor to your world, praying you might find a new one. The immediate aftermath of your choice is not freedom, but a suffocating, boundless terror. The fear you felt under Captain Thorne's hardening gaze was a sharp, direct thing. The fear of a tyrant. This is different. This is the primal, ancient fear of being small, soft, and utterly alone in a world that is vast, indifferent, and hungry. One moment, you were a queen's man, a member of an expedition, a cog in the grand machine of empire. The next, you are simply prey. Every snap of a twig is the footstep of a jaguar. Every rustle in the canopy is a venomous snake. The jungle, which had been a disorienting backdrop, is now the main character, and its voice is a chorus of a million things that can kill you. Your desperate flight from Thorne's camp has left you with nothing but a satchel, your useless compass, and a soul-crushing certainty that in escaping a madman, you have run headlong into the arms of a far more patient and absolute death. Your first day is a frantic, clumsy stumble through the undergrowth. You remember your training, the neat theories of navigation. You are a cartographer, a man who renders the world into knowable lines and reliable angles. But here that knowledge is a mockery. The sun is a diffuse, white glare filtered through 100 feet of foliage, giving you no direction. At night, the stars that have been your constant companions across the Atlantic are completely blotted out by the suffocating blanket of the canopy. Your compass needle spins with maddening confidence, telling you which way is north, but this information is useless when every direction is a wall of green. You are trapped not in a space, but in a state. The jungle doesn't have paths. It has obstacles. Every step is a deliberate, exhausting effort, lifting your boots over thick roots, pushing aside broad, wet leaves that slap your face, and sinking into mud that tries to steal your shoes. The humidity is a physical presence. It is nothing like the damp chill of England. This is a wet, heavy heat that wraps you in a stinking blanket and never lets go. You sweat constantly, but it brings no relief. Your fine wool tunic, a mark of status and service, is now a torture device. You can feel it clinging to your skin, sodden and heavy, rubbing you raw at the collar and under your arms. In the modern world, you would call this chafing. Here, you understand it is the beginning of something more sinister. An open sore in this environment is not an inconvenience. It is an invitation. An invitation for insects, for infection, for a slow, agonizing decay. You claw at the fabric, wishing you could tear it off, but the fear of the 1,000 things that bite and sting keeps the wretched garment on your body. By the second day, thirst becomes your master. Your small water skin is long empty, and your mouth is a dry, sticky cavern. Your tongue feels thick and clumsy. You see water everywhere, in the dampness of the leaves, in the slick mud, in the dark, stagnant puddles, cupped by fallen trees. But you remember the sailors' warnings, the tales of men who died in writhing agony from drinking the wrong water, the dysentery, the bloody flux, the fevers that bake a man from the inside out. So you stumble on, your mind a haze, the world tilting and shimmering before your eyes. You trip and fall, your hands sinking into the soft, rotten loam of the forest floor. You lift a palm to your face and the smell is overwhelming. Not the clean, earthy scent of a temperate forest, but the rich, complex odor of relentless decay and ferocious life, all jumbled together. It is the smell of 1,000,000 years of birth and death, happening all at once, right under your nose. On the third day, you collapse. Your legs simply refuse to obey. The world dissolves into a green and brown blur. You lie there, listening to the buzz of insects, feeling the dampness seep through your clothes into your very bones. You think of your home in Plymouth, of the cool sea breeze coming off the harbor. You think of the crisp, clean pages of your charts, the reassuring certainty of a plotted course. It all seems like a dream from another man's life. You have failed. You deserted your post only to die a pathetic, anonymous death, your bones to be scattered by scavengers, and your memory to be nothing more than a name crossed off a ship's roster. You close your eyes, a strange sense of calm settling over you. The struggle is over. You don't know how long you lie there. It could be minutes or hours. Time has melted. What rouses you is not a sound, but a sudden change in the light. A shadow has fallen over you. You peel your eyelids open, your vision swimming. A figure stands above you, silhouetted against the canopy's glare. Your heart seizes in your chest. It is one of Thorne's men, come to drag you back for a traitor's hanging. But the shape is wrong, leaner, quieter. As your eyes focus, you see him. It's Cale. He is not dressed as he was on the ship. The rough-spun captive's clothes are gone. He wears only a loincloth, his skin marked with patterns of ash and clay that make him seem a part of the forest itself. In one hand he holds a long, simple spear. He looks down at you, his face unreadable. There is no pity, no anger, just a deep, still watchfulness. You try to speak, to form an apology or a plea, but only a dry croak emerges. He says nothing. He simply unslings a gourd from his shoulder, uncorks it, and kneels beside you. He gently lifts your head and presses the gourd to your cracked lips. The water is cool and clean, tasting faintly of smoke and earth. It is the most exquisite thing you have ever tasted. You drink greedily, spilling some down your chin. He lets you drink your fill, then pulls it gently away. He reaches into a small pouch at his hip and pulls out a chunk of something pale and roasted. He breaks off a piece and offers it to you. It looks like a simple root, but as you chew, the starchy, nutty flavor explodes in your mouth, and a wave of warmth spreads through your empty stomach. You realize with a jolt that this is the first real food you've had in days. It's not a feast, but it's life. It is a promise that today you will not die. He has found you not as a hunter, but as a rescuer. There is no formal agreement. No words are exchanged. When you are strong enough to stand, he simply turns and begins to walk, and you follow. This is how your true education begins. He is not your guide in the way an Englishman would be, pointing out landmarks and marching with grim purpose. He is your teacher. The jungle is his schoolhouse. Your first lesson is in walking. You have been walking your entire life, but you quickly learn you have been doing it all wrong. You crash through the undergrowth, snapping twigs, your heavy leather boots making sucking sounds in the mud. Carl moves like water. He seems to flow through the trees, never making a sound. He pauses and gestures for you to watch his feet. He doesn't place them heel to toe, the marching gait of a European soldier. He rolls his foot, placing the outside edge down first, feeling the ground before committing his weight. It's a slow, deliberate movement that distributes his weight and makes no noise. You try to copy him, and it feels awkward, unnatural, using muscles in your feet and ankles you never knew you had. For days you feel like a clumsy child, but slowly, you start to learn. You learn to stop seeing the jungle as a wall to be battered through, and start seeing it as a space to be navigated. Your next lesson is in seeing. Your eyes, trained to scan the vast, empty horizon of the ocean, are useless here. You see a chaotic tangle of green. Kyle sees a living world. He will stop abruptly and point. You see nothing but leaves. Then he will gesture again, and you will finally see it, the subtle curve of a vine that is actually a snake, basking in a patch of sun. He will touch the bark of a tree and show you the almost invisible scratch marks that signal the passage of a predator. He teaches you to see the world not as a single picture, but as a million tiny details, each with a meaning. The curl of a leaf means thirst. The presence of a certain mushroom means rot. The flight pattern of a specific bird means a storm is coming. Your cartographer's mind, once filled with the abstractions of latitude and longitude, begins to learn a new map, a living map written in the language of the forest itself. Food is a constant, desperate concern. You realize how utterly disconnected you are from the source of your own sustenance. In England, food comes from a market, from a bakery, from a farm. It is a commodity. Here, it is a challenge. Kale teaches you what is safe. He shows you the starchy roots you can dig up and roast, the fat, white grubs you can find in rotting logs, which you at first refuse, then eat with desperate hunger, and the small, tart fruits that grow high in the canopy. You watch him fashion a simple hook from a thorn and a line from plant fiber and pull a small, silvery fish from a creek so clear you can count the pebbles on the bottom. He shows you which palms have an edible heart, a process that requires felling the entire tree with a stone axe. You participate in the labor, your soft scholar's hands quickly becoming a mass of blisters, then calluses. You feel the deep, satisfying ache of meaningful work, of providing for your own survival in the most direct way imaginable. You are not earning coin to buy bread, you are earning the bread itself. Months pass in this way. You don't track them with a calendar. You track them by the rhythm of the rains, by the fruiting of the trees, by the slow, steady transformation of your own body. The sun and the labor strip away your pallid English softness. You grow lean and hard. Your woolens rot away, and Kale shows you how to treat bark until it is soft enough to wear as a loincloth. It is infinitely more comfortable, breathing and drying quickly, a second skin perfectly adapted to this world. Your fair skin, once a mark of gentle birth, darkens under the sun. You learn to speak his language not through formal lessons, but through imitation and necessity. Simple words at first: water, danger, food, there. Then, slowly, you begin to string them together, forming thoughts, asking questions. You learn that his name is not just Kale, but Kale who listens to the river. You learn he was not captured by the Spanish, but traded by a rival village for steel knives. He speaks of it without bitterness, as a simple fact of the world. One day, after a long journey following the winding path of a wide, muddy river, you hear a new sound. It is the sound of dogs barking, of children shouting, of voices raised in song. Kale smiles, a rare and fleeting expression on his stoic face. He leads you into a clearing. It is his home. The village is not the savage, crude mess of hovels you read about in pamphlets in London. It is a masterpiece of engineering and community. Huts are built on tall stilts, safe from floods and predators. A central fire pit provides a communal heart, a place for cooking and storytelling. The people are wary of you at first. Your pale skin and strange features mark you as an outsider, one of the violent, ghost-faced men from the sea. But you are with Kyle, and his word is accepted. He speaks to the elders, his hands moving to tell the story of your escape, of your journey together. You are given a place to sleep, a share of the meal. You are no longer a fugitive. You are a guest. Life here has a rhythm that your world lacks. It is a rhythm dictated by the sun and the seasons, not by the ringing of a church bell or a ship's watch. You work with the others. You help mend fishing nets woven from vines. You help grind manioc root. You help reinforce the thatch of the roofs before the rainy season. You listen to the stories told around the fire at night, tales of forest spirits, of the creation of the world, of great heroes and cunning tricksters. They are not idle fancies. They are the maps of their souls, the way they make sense of the world. It is around one of these fires, months after your arrival, that a group of travelers from a village downriver brings news. They speak of a band of other pale men, lost and desperate. Their story is told with a mixture of fear and pity, translated for you by Kyle. The great Captain Thorne's expedition had crumbled from within. The city of gold was a phantom, a fever dream that led his men deeper and deeper into a hell of their own making. The jungle did not need to fight them. It simply needed to wait. The shaking sickness, the malaria, took many, their bodies racked with fevers and chills until they died, raving. The constant damp ruined their gunpowder, rendering their muskets useless clubs. They blundered through the forest, starving, eating their own leather belts, then their shoes. They grew gaunt and hollow-eyed, their discipline dissolving into paranoia and animal cunning. Thorne, they say, was the worst of them all. His obsession had consumed him, and he drove his men on with threats and promises long after all hope was gone. The end was not a grand, dramatic battle. It was a pathetic, bloody squabble over the last handful of moldy biscuit, a mutiny born of desperation. The few remaining crew members, broken and sick, turned on him. They took what little he had left, his sword, his pistol, his charts, and they left him there. They abandoned their great captain to the wilderness he sought to conquer. The last they saw of him, he was wandering alone, shouting at the trees, a king of a kingdom of mud and leaves. You listen to this story, the firelight flickering on the faces of the villagers, the sounds of the night pressing in around the clearing. You expect to feel something. A surge of triumph, perhaps. A grim satisfaction that justice was done. But you feel nothing of the sort. There is no joy. There is only a profound and quiet sorrow that settles in your chest like a stone. You picture Captain Gideon Thorne, not as the maddened wraith in the jungle, but as the man you first met on the docks in Plymouth. The confident hero of the Queen, his eyes sparkling with ambition, his voice ringing with promises of glory and honor. You mourn that man, and you mourn the idealistic young cartographer who believed in him. Both of you died out here in the Green Maw. He was consumed by his refusal to see the world for what it was, and you were saved because you finally learned to. The fire pops, sending a shower of sparks into the dark, starless sky. You are no longer lost. You are home. The news of Captain Thorne's fate, delivered by a wandering trader months after you had last seen him, did not bring the grim satisfaction you might have expected. There was no joy, no sense of justice served. Instead, the story of his final days, a descent into paranoia, followed by a bloody mutiny that left him alone to be swallowed by the green wilderness he could never conquer, settled in your soul like a fine, cold silt. It was a profound and quiet sorrow, a mourning for the captain who once stood on the quarterdeck of the Sea Dragon as a paragon of English virtue, and for the idealistic young man who had once admired him without question. That man, you realized, was as lost to the jungle as Thorne himself. Kyle had found you, not as a captive, but as a fellow creature of the forest, and in the intervening seasons, you learned a new existence. Now, so many years have passed that the memories of Salt Spray and Plymouth Grey are like the echoes of a dream, and the sun on your weathered skin feels more like home than any English hearth ever did. The world you wake in now does not smell of stale sea biscuits and bilge water, but of damp earth, wood smoke, and the sweet, heavy perfume of night blooming flowers. You rise not from a swaying hammock in cramped quarters, but from a woven mat on a hard, packed earthen floor. You might think, after a lifetime of soft featherbeds, that this would be an agony. But the truth is, your body has changed. You stretch, and the muscles in your back and shoulders, once knotted with the tension of naval life, are now long and supple, hardened by years of real labor. The dull ache you once carried everywhere has simply vanished, replaced by the satisfying tiredness that comes from a day spent building, hunting, or tending the crops. You are part of Kyle's community now, a village nestled in a clearing that breathes with the rhythm of the surrounding rainforest. Your day begins not with the sharp ring of a ship's bell, but with the gradually increasing chorus of the jungle itself. First, the deep, guttural calls of howler monkeys, a sound that once terrified you, but now serves as a gentle alarm clock. Then the chittering of 1,000 unseen insects, and the fluting melodies of birds you have come to know by name. You step out of your dwelling, a sturdy hut of timber and woven thatch you help build with your own hands, and the morning air, thick with humidity, wraps around you like a familiar blanket. A group of children, their skin the color of rich soil, chase a bright blue butterfly past you, their laughter a language you now understand almost as well as your own. An old woman nods to you from across the compound, her wrinkled face breaking into a smile as she tends a slow burning fire. There is no quarterdeck here, no rigid hierarchy of command. There is only the work that needs to be done, and the people who do it together. Your stomach rumbles, reminding you of breakfast. You recall the bland, repetitive fare of the sea dragons, hardtack so infested with weevils, you'd knock it on the table to shake them out, salted pork so tough it was like chewing leather, and lukewarm, brackish water. Here, your meal is simple, yet vibrant with life. You take a piece of cassava bread, dense and slightly sweet, and dip it into a paste of crushed nuts and chili. You eat a handful of fruits picked just an hour ago, their juices bursting in your mouth with a sweetness that English sugar could never replicate. This diet, once so alien, has remade you from the inside out. The soft paunch you were developing as a navigator has long since melted away, leaving you lean and sinewy. Your mind feels sharper, clearer, unburdened by the heavy, preserved foods of the old world. You realize now that what the English called civilized cuisine was mostly just a desperate attempt to fend off decay. Here, everything is fresh, immediate, and suffused with the energy of the forest. Speaking of work, your old tools lie buried somewhere deep in your memory. The polished brass sextant, the delicate compass, the rolls of expensive vellum, they all belong to a different man, a different lifetime. Your hands, once soft and stained only with ink, are now calloused and scarred in a dozen places. You have learned to read a different set of instruments. The curl of a leaf that signals water is near. The pattern of clouds that foretells a coming storm. The subtle track in the mud that tells you what animal has passed and how long ago. Your mind, once filled with the rigid and certain lines of longitude and latitude, has learned a new and more fluid kind of geometry. It is the geometry of a river's bend, the arc of a thrown spear, the spiral of a climbing vine. Yet, you have not abandoned your first calling. You are still a cartographer. But your maps are no longer instruments of empire. They are not for conquest, or for marking territories to be claimed by a distant queen. They are for the people. You find a quiet spot under the sprawling canopy of a great ceiba tree, a place the villagers consider sacred. This is your workshop. Your parchment is the treated inner bark of a particular tree, pounded thin and dried in the sun until it is pale and supple. Your ink is not purchased from a London stationer. It is made from the charcoal of specific woods, mixed with water to create a deep, permanent black. Your colors are ground from ochre clays, crushed berries and vibrant petals, creating a palette of reds, yellows, and blues that seem to sing with the life of the jungle. You sit, cross-legged, a prepared sheet of bark across your lap. The map you draw today is not of a coastline or a shipping lane. You are mapping a story. You draw the wending path of the river, but you do not mark its depth in fathoms. Instead, you sketch the jaguar. Kyle's people call it the forest spirit. At the bend where it is often seen drinking at dusk, you draw the cluster of tall palms that marks a good place to find edible grubs. Further on, you use a splash of red pigment to illustrate the grove of trees whose bark is used to make a potent fever remedy. This map does not show a static landscape to be owned. It shows a living world, a network of relationships, dangers, and gifts. It is a guide to survival, but also a spiritual geography, a way of understanding one's place within the great, breathing whole. As your hand moves, you remember the pride you once took in your charts for the crown. The crisp, clean lines, the elegant calligraphy, the royal seal stamped in the corner. You saw them as triumphs of reason, the imposition of English order upon a wild, chaotic world. You see the profound arrogance in that now. Your lines were lies. They were straight and confident, but they ignored the sacred mountains, the ancestral hunting grounds, the spirits of the rivers. Your maps claimed knowledge, but they were blind to the truth of the land. They were tools designed to help men like Thorne see the world as a treasure chest to be plundered. You look down at the map on your lap, with its swirling lines and iconic figures. This map makes no such claims. It is a conversation with the land, not a command issued to it. You wonder what Thorne would make of it. He would likely see it as a child's crude scrawling, and in that, you realize, lies the very core of his failure. He could never see the world as anything other than something to be broken, measured, and sold. Years fold into one another like the seasons. Your English, once your only tool of expression, grows soft at the edges, the words rounded and reshaped by the cadence of a new tongue. You still speak it sometimes, in quiet moments to yourself, but it feels foreign, the language of a ghost. Your name, the one given to you in a stone church in Plymouth, is rarely used. You have a new name now, one given to you by the village elders, a name that means, "Hey, who draws the way?" You have a family here, not of blood, but of shared life, shared struggle, and shared laughter. You have helped raise children who see you not as a strange outsider, but simply as one of their own. You have taught them how to read the stars, not for navigation to distant lands, but to know when to plant and when to harvest. In turn, they have taught you 1,000 things you never knew your soul needed to learn. One late afternoon, you are on the coast with a small group gathering mollusks from the tide pools. The sun is a fiery orange orb, beginning its slow descent into the turquoise water. The air is still and salty. It is a moment of perfect, uncomplicated peace. Then a young boy, his eyes wide, points a single, trembling finger toward the horizon. "Look," he says, his voice a hushed whisper in your new language. You follow his gaze and your heart, for the first time in many years, gives a hard, painful lurch. It is a silhouette you know as well as you know your own hand. A ghost from the deepest recesses of your memory. 3 masts, the distinct pattern of square, rigged sails, catching the last of the evening light. A European ship. It hangs there on the edge of the world, a distant, impossible spectre, a fragment of the life you left behind. You stand slowly, your feet sinking into the wet sand. The sound of the waves on the shore seems to fade away, replaced by a roaring in your ears. You can almost feel the phantom sway of a deck beneath you. Smell the tar in the ropes, hear the creak of the timbers. A flood of images rushes through your mind, the crowded, cobbled streets of Plymouth, the face of your mother, weeping on the quay, the Queen's commission, the heavy wax seal cool in your hand, the boom of the sea dragon's cannons, the cold, calculating gleam in Captain Thorne's eyes. It is all there, an entire world contained in that tiny, distant shape. The others look to you. They know your story, the broad strokes of it at least. They see the ship, and then they see your face, and they are silent, waiting. They are giving you a choice. This is your world, the world that made you, return to find you. You could perhaps build a signal fire. You could try to hail them. You could go back. The thought flickers, a tiny, dying ember. What would you return to? A land you no longer know? A life of ink and paper and fealty to a crown whose glory now seems like a child's fairy tale? Would you trade the warmth of a communal fire for the cold ambition of an empire? You look at the ship again. The men on board, are just like you were. Their heads are full of stories of glory. Their hearts are burning with a patriotic fire, and their souls are hungry for gold. They see the green coastline before them not as a home, but as a frontier, an obstacle, a prize. They bring with them their straight line maps, their unwavering certainty, and their bottomless greed. You don't feel anger toward them. You feel a deep, aching pity. They are sailing headlong into the same beautiful, terrible trap that consumed Captain Thorne. They think they are the conquerors, but the true wilderness they have yet to face is the one inside their own hearts. A small hand slips into yours. It is the boy who first saw the ship. He looks up at you, his dark eyes full of a trusting calm. He doesn't understand what the ship means, not really, but he understands you. He feels the tremor that ran through you, and he is offering a simple, grounding comfort. His touch is an anchor, pulling you back from the ghost world on the horizon, back to the solid reality of the sand beneath your feet, the warmth of his hand, the smell of the salt spray. You hold his hand tightly. You look at the ship one last time. It is no longer a temptation or a memory. It is just an object, a piece of wood and cloth from a world that has no power over you anymore. It is a cautionary tale floating on the water. You feel no longing. You feel no regret. Slowly, deliberately, you turn your back on the ocean. You turn your back on England, on the Queen, on the young cartographer who dreamed of charting the world for an empire. You look toward the tree line, where the palms stand like silent sentinels, and beyond which you can hear the faint, comforting sounds of the village. Home. Let's go, you say, your voice clear and steady in your new tongue. The tide is turning. Together, you walk away from the shore, your bare feet leaving prints in the sand that the rising tide will soon erase. You went looking for new worlds to map and claim, a servant of power and ambition. You sought glory, but instead, you found belonging. You sought to chart the vast, unknown coastlines of a continent, but instead, you ended up mapping the far more intricate and uncharted territory of your own heart. And here, in this small village, with the jungle breathing around you and a child's hand in yours, you have finally, truly found your way.